Having gone on a weekend camping trip to Red Canyon Park, just north of Canyon City, Colorado, I had already staked my claim to a secluded campsite and gone on a hike. Now I was ready to set up camp, and after settling on a decent spot for the tent, I began the age-old struggle of shelter construction. Fortunately, my campsite was large, and it had lots of room, separating the tent area from the fire pit and the camp kitchen. After removing a couple of small boulders from where the tent was to go, I carefully set them aside to be returned to their original locations later, heedless of having just created the perfect nighttime tripping hazard for myself. Anyway, I then laid down a tarp to protect the floor of the tent and dumped the tent out of its bag and began wrestling with the giant bendy erector set that was my tent frame. I was more than a little rusty at setting up the tent, as it had been about 6 months since I had last used it. It is basically a screen tent to which you attach a rainfly, not only for protection from the weather, but of course for extra warmth and privacy. Eventually, it all came together, and I was able to lay out my newest acquisition, a large doormat, which will help prevent tracking in so much dirt. Finally, I began moving my stuff inside. One thing I like about this tent is that even though it is relatively small, it feels very roomy inside. I was tempted while I was in there to take a nap, but at this point in the afternoon, it was just way too warm for that. Next, I set up the kitchen area, which was just a simple folding table with all my camping kitchen items laid out on it, or kept in bins next to it. As a foodie, I had eagerly planned out what to eat on my first camping trip of the season, and had chosen steak burritos for tonight's dinner. After slicing up the steak, onions, peppers, and tomatoes for my camp burritos, it was time to set up and light the stove. I then began cooking in earnest, melting butter in a cast iron skillet and sauteing the onions. And once these were done just right, I took them off the fire and then dumped all the other freshly sliced items into the skillet and cooked them up together. I was able to make 3 burritos, rolling them somewhat clumsily before placing them back into the skillet for a final toasting. Even though my cooking skills could always use a little improvement, and I had forgotten to bring salsa, camp food always seems to be the best food there is. After watching the sun go down and the sky grow dark, it was time to build a fire. The wood I packed in the car earlier was old and dry, very dry, so I was anticipating an easy ignition, but was still a little stunned by how quickly the wood burst into flames. It was a good reminder of just how dangerous fire, even a small campfire, can be when conditions are just right. As I sat looking into the dancing flames, I began to think about fire. By definition, fire is a chemical reaction in which fuel, in this case dry wood, when combined in the right circumstances with oxygen in the air and exposed to an ignition source, produces energy in the form of light and heat along with carbon dioxide gas and ash. However, a campfire seems like something beyond this technical explanation. It is a source of fascination and delight that kindles within us a blaze of inspiration. It is a mysterious and beguiling presence that can awaken our spirits and fill our hearts with wonder. May you always be inspired to wander and wonder.